Kenya is interested in becoming the regional hub for Islamic finance, not just Islamic banking, Islamic finance in East Africa. Now, that's not just because of the number of Muslims in the region, it's because the system is becoming relatively popular among non-Muslims as well. Now, compared to your conventional fractional sort of banking, Islamic banking or Sharia compliant banking, if you will, doesn't levy interest on consumers' cash because that is forbidden. Let's dig a little deeper into what that looks like in action in the Kenyan market. Abdullah Abdulhalik is the Managing Director of the Gulf African Bank. He's live with me in studio tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's start with looking at your performance. Profits before tax between 2015 2016 starting to decline, just over $1 billion just over $1 billion shillings in 2015, 750 million shillings the next year, despite net advances going up by quite a bit. So what happened there?
Yeah, 2016 was a very challenging year for the banking industry in Kenya. It started off towards the end of 2015 when the first bank, Imperial Bank, was put under receivership. Later on, Dubai Bank was put into receivership. And during the first quarter of 2016, Chase Bank was put into receivership. This created a confidence crisis among smaller banks in Kenya. And the impact of that is what we saw is a run on deposits. Banks had to relook at their strategies, stopped lending for a while as we rebuilt the confidence of our customers. And that impact was there. And towards the end of the year, also, if you remember, in September, we had interest rate cap laws that were put into effect, which was another blow that came to the banking industry. So it's not just a Gulf African bank. I know there were other banks who were impacted even more heavily. But as a result of that, we recorded lower profit during the year.
When you talk about the flight to quality, the flight to safety, as some might describe it, how badly were you affected in terms of deposits that you held last year, and have you recovered from that hit?
We actually lost about 4 billion shillings of deposits within a spell of 3 weeks. But because of the so many rumors that were going on in the market at the time, people didn't know what was happening, so people thought it was safer to take their money away. But we managed to convince our customers that the fall of these two banks had nothing to do with other banks, not even just Gulf African Bank. It is because these were not systemic problems that were happening at the time. Yeah. It was corporate governance within those banks itself. Right. So we managed to recover. By end of year, we had recovered whatever we had lost. So we regained the confidence pretty quickly.
Walk us through the challenge of running an Islamic bank. We usually have CEOs of conventional banks here, and it's fairly straightforward for a lot of our audience to understand what goes on there. But when it comes to running an Islamic bank, what are the challenges you face in day-to-day operations? Is it a problem of raising capital, or is it more of a perception problem where you have to explain your business model to potential clients?
Oh, it's more of the latter, the perception in the market, because there's this perception that Islamic banks are just for Muslims, okay, which is totally wrong. And maybe Islamic banks have not done enough to create that awareness of what it is all about. And Islamic bank is not about selling faith. It's just a concept that people need to look at and accept it. I would say today we have a sizable number of customers who belonging to other faiths other than Islam. But I think we can do a lot more, and even Islamic banks, other Islamic banks that are operating here in Kenya, they can do a lot more.
But when it comes to raising capital, though, I mean, if I was a potential investor, I'd say, yes, okay, your balance sheet looks pretty interesting. I'd like to put in, say, $100 million yes, for onward lending. But given your model, interest is essentially out of the equation. Yes. So how do we price such an investment?
Interest, of course, is out, but because Islamic banks promote trade and promote equity and partnerships. Okay, it's not there. The Islamic banks that I know who are operating in Kenya today have not had capital problems as we speak. For example, if I can speak for Gulf African Bank, a Gulf African Bank is owned mainly from the Gulf region. And if anything, we have more capital than what we need today. Yeah. We are not even utilizing it fully. So in fact, we have just been approved another $17 million by one of our partners, which is the PTA Bank, as Tier 2 capital, which we haven't used because we have not seen the need yet. So in terms of capital, I think there is no shortage of capital from Islamic Bank, because but this is a closed investment, and it has not been opened up to other investors.
All right, then we'll leave it there for the time being. Mr. Abdallah, thank you very much for your time.